Thanks for listening to the Modern Firm podcast today. Darren Root, John Mitchell, back in your ears. Darren?
You know how many of these predictions we're going to get wrong, right? But
I mean, really, that's what this show is about. This episode is about how dumb can John and Darren look by this time next year.
that's a problem with a video recording of what you think is going to happen.
I know it, but it never stops us. We've been doing this for a really long time, and we do it every year. So
this will be fun. So what we're going to do today is we are going to make some 2025 predictions. Some of them are broad enough that, you know,
we can pretend we knew.
Yeah, we probably won't swing and miss on those. But, you know, I really, I'm just thinking about late last year when ChatGPT came out, John. And, it was such the rage, like everybody was on it in no time. It happened really fast. And so, the immediate thought is, or my thought is, holy cow, this is going to like change the world.
Yeah.
In, the next 6 months.
I mean, it already has in some ways.
But the reality of that is, it's going to absolutely change the world. And I don't even know who's this quote's attributed to, but, it essentially says, if everything you think is going to happen right away doesn't, but when you get out 5 or 10 years and you look back, it happened faster than it should have or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is interesting as we're looking through our list today. None of these things are like big stretches. They're all things that may or may not happen in 2025, but things that we know are coming, and I think that's the thing that's so exciting to me about AI and about, when I think about where technology is headed, I think AI has overshadowed a part of the growth of a part of the industry that I think is maybe as important, if not more important than AI. And that's quantum computing. I think everything we do in technology is limited by the speed at which we can process it and move it around, including AI and including large language models. So what I think is moving faster than people realize and is coming sooner than people realize is higher speed computing, which has even greater implications in a lot of ways than artificial intelligence.
Which is why NVIDIA seems to be dominating the marketplace, is because they seem like they figured that out a little while back.
They really did. It kind of reminds me of, when the website hit, everybody wanted internet websites when I don't even remember the year now, but it just felt like you needed to have a presence online, and it was the buzz and it was the thing. And then all of a sudden it was really just convoluted and hard to use, and it was slow and all. And it's because the infrastructure didn't keep up with the software, with the trends. And I think quantum computing is the infrastructure that is going to enable us to do things with AI and do things with even technologies we're already using, communication technologies that we can't even imagine yet because of speed.
All right, so let's talk through our predictions. We can take these, and then you can have yours, and I'll take mine. That way, I can make fun of yours.
That's good. That sounds real good. Well, speaking of yours, let's start with, the logo that's now tattooed on your forehead, Revelation styled, at Apple, and they're taking over of the world.
Yeah. So Apple Intelligence, I think 2025, I mean, we've seen basic rollouts in iOS, so on mobile devices and on laptops and on iPads now of Apple's first iteration of Apple Intelligence, which is essentially, I think the idea is to make your machine smarter with the data that's sitting on your machine. And then also connected to places like ChatGPT that can also bring intelligence into that at a very, very, very consumer level.
Yeah.
That's what I think where Apple's at the moment. I don't think in 2024 it's meaningful so far, but I think in 2025, in Apple's sort of way, 2025 it's going to become more meaningful. We're going to be able to do more things and get more comfortable with it and see it in our daily lives.
Yeah.
So not a super stretch for a prediction, based on
Well,
Apple's history.
I think it's going to go slower than we wish it would. That's what Darren, do you remember? I was thinking about this the other day. We were at a workshop together, and I think the year was like 2018 when we showed Google's CEO
Yeah,
doing this announcement about an Google assistant that would call and make
the
a dinner
reservations and
reservation
all
for
that.
you.
Yeah,
And you look back at that and you're just like, well, that's kind of ridiculous. Like, I don't, in the moment, it felt like this futuristic thing. And we're doing so much bigger things than that just a few years later. And I kind of think that's, in a way, that's what's going to happen with Apple. It's going to go slower than we wish it would at first. And then by this time next year, we're going to be laughing at our conversation. And because I do think Apple tends to roll things out slower than we want them to, so that it's not half baked when people are using it. And I think that's a wise thing. But I wish they hadn't told everybody it would be November when you would start seeing or October, I think was the initial thing. And
yeah.
you've got an iPhone and you're really not still seeing anything, right?
I mean, nothing meaningful at this point. I mean, I see where it's heading,
Yeah.
and I think 2025 will be a decent year for that. So, kind of your comment on Google, John, in 2018. So here we are, 6 years, getting ready to go into 7 years later, and everything that was essentially shown in 2018 is very doable
Mm-hmm.
at this point in our cycle.
Almost feels funny that
Yeah.
it was such a futuristic sounding thing at the time.
I remember the same. Remember QuickBooks Online did the exact same thing, John. We showed that
Yeah.
video. It was like, the ability to talk into something, set up a customer, automatically geolocate where that customer is at, create the first invoice, make it recurring. We're at that point in time, we were like, oh my gosh.
All
And,
that technology is being used right now.
and yeah, so, paying attention to this stuff is going to tell our listeners where things are going to be at in the next few years. But what we're trying to focus a little bit on today is the impact maybe in 2025.
Yeah. Darren, one of the things that I'm really excited about, my emphasis is working with teams and trying to make jobs better in the midst of all of this. I think AI agents are going to, in 2025, begin to be less annoying and more useful both to customers and to small businesses. I think we're going to start seeing the feeling that I'm being served more personally, and without someone having to just answer phone calls all day. I think it's getting
So
better.
define that for everybody a minute, John.
Yeah. So an AI agent is, think of it as, the big joke used to be how bad Comcast was as a customer service.
Was?
Well, and maybe still is. I don't want to do Comcast anymore, but I mean, that was the joke. They are known for how bad a customer service. Well, their CEO came out, and I think it was 5 years ago now, and basically said it was a terrible comment that he made about how the problem with their customer service is the variables in their staff. Some of our staff are dumb, which is a terrible thing to say.
Not a helpful thing to say.
It was a terrible thing to say. It got him fired eventually, but he blamed the variables in human nature in the inconsistencies in customer service. And since, especially since 2010, the field of agency and being able to go in and actually be a customer service support person, very few people want to do that as a career. So it becomes maybe a stepping stone for them, which means they have a 6 to 8 month shelf life on that job, which
Mhm.
means nobody's getting good at this. They're just using it as their next
Yeah.
step. So this is a field in American culture that is becoming more and more, or world culture, that is becoming more and more important to us getting our stuff done, but less and less a level area of expertise. This to me is an ideal place for AI because it doesn't take jobs that are necessary, these career type jobs. Yes, it will take some jobs, but what I'm hoping is that it will open up opportunities for real humans to do things that provide a different level of value. And that couldn't happen until we got to a large language model that would allow more than a phone tree out of its agents. And I think that we're going to start seeing that and hearing that and feeling that in our customers' experiences in 2025.
Do you think we're going to see tools like that for small businesses that are easy enough for a small business to implement?
Yeah, so we already are to some extent. If you think about the evolution of the chatbot, a chatbot used to be basically a a binary robot that if you didn't ask it the right questions, it would say, please contact customer service because it has a decision tree to make that is very binary. With the large language model option added to a chatbot, now I am leveraging more than the binary. I'm leveraging more than a decision tree in order to get stuff back to my customers. So is it the full extent that AT&T is ready to implement in March of 2025? No. And I don't see that coming anytime soon. But what you can do with the technology that used to exist in the form of chatbots and more automated help and self-help now has leveraged AI to really provide a whole lot more initial triage of those customer service questions.
So, just to sort of recap, the two that we've talked about so far for 2025 is Apple Intelligence is probably going to make AI mainstream because it's going to be on everybody's phone in
Yeah.
2025, at some level. So people are going to get very used to using some levels of those technologies. And then you're thinking AI agents, people are going to start using those to serve customers a little bit better in 2025, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to start with the biggest companies who can invest and the ones who
Yeah.
will see the biggest return on their investment. You know, think about your AT&Ts. AT&T is obviously leading this conversation, and Comcast's your big service providers in the world are going to start using this as an initial triage. I think small businesses begin to see this in terms of providing some capacity for people who should be doing other things than answering questions about how to pay their bill. Um,
I think that kind of goes into the next point we were going to make for 2025, John, is a strategic integration of AI.
mhm.
So integrating AI tools that will do the things like in an accounting firm, getting information into a tax software,
Yeah.
uh, automatically, or getting a payroll done more efficiently or more effectively, leveraging AI so that, the humans can do other work that they're not able to get to because they're kind of tied up in some of the minutia of data entry.
Yeah, I think it's just like almost every major piece of technology that has entered our culture. The initial reaction is, isn't this cool? Let's play with it.
Yeah.
And we play with it until we get bored of playing with it and we realize we've got to take this to the next logical step, which is usability, which is this utilitarian approach. And Darren, I my world is changed by Notebook FM. If you haven't ever looked up Notebook FM, Notebook AI is actually the company. Notebook FM is a free uh, AI tool. I even hesitate to call it an AI tool. It is. But basically, what it allows me to do is, as a content developer, I can put in all of my old content from 30 years of writing, as well as anybody else's content that I feel like I like.
Hmm.
And now I'm creating my own repository of information that I can query myself. So
Interesting.
yeah, in fact, it's really, really cool. I can even go out there. So here's how my daughter's using this right now. She has a biology class that her teacher is so fast. All she can do is take notes. She can't pay attention, and he's just thick, and it's not fun, and he doesn't make it interesting. So what she does after I got to introduce her to one thing finally, Notebook LM, is she records audio of his lecture, transcribes it, inputs it into Notebook LM, and then Notebook will actually create a podcast with 2 AI audio voices that if you were to listen to it right now, I promise you could not tell they weren't humans. And the podcast, you can tell me stories, give me anecdotes, give me analogies and
Mm.
illustrations. She will take that hour-long boring lecture that doesn't seem like it makes sense, and she'll create a podcast and go work out, and she'll listen to a podcast in her own vernacular that will explain the concepts. Now we've just got this really cool thing that we used to think was fun, and we made funny videos out of it. Now we're talking about educating people in their own vernacular and on their own terms. This is a different world, and it only becomes different when it goes from this is cool to this can change the way I work and live and learn.
So you're predicting that we're going to see useful, meaningful changes in 25 on a tool like that.
And we're going to see this is my bigger prediction, we're going to see some AI startups go away. We're going to see startups who were leveraging the energy and the excitement and the buzz around AI, but didn't really have anything but a wrapper.
Yeah.
And didn't really have anything but just a bandwagon software. We're going to see them go away, and people are going to go, what will this actually do? And if it doesn't do something that adds to my productivity in my life, it's out. And I think that's a really good trend.
My next one for 25, John, is around customer experience.
Yeah.
I noticed, myself getting more and more frustrated when you see or interact with a business who's put no energy into making the customer experience better.
Yeah.
And in today's world, I think not prioritizing an enhanced customer experience is going to start separating you from those who do.
Yeah. I listened to Hard Fork, the podcast, which I've tried to get you to listen to before. I don't think you listen to that anymore. It's a New York Times podcast, and it's about technology. And recently they just brought on a restaurant owner from Chicago, owns 6 restaurants in Chicago. And oh my gosh, the interview was unbelievable. You can just look it up. Hard Fork. I think it was the September episode. But they basically asked him, what is AI doing for customer service? What is technology doing to customer service? And his prediction for the next, I think he said 24 months, was that you're going to start to see chain restaurants go away in Chicago. You're going to start to see chain restaurants work so much better in smaller areas, but the Applebee's in Chicago is not working. It's dying. Yeah. And it's not because they don't have good customer service, but because I can go next door to a company, to a small mom and pop local restaurant that makes me feel like I'm a part of something. And his belief is that with all of the technology and all of the disconnection that we feel sometimes moving out of our offices and being virtual, we are moving back into that. I want to know the owner of this restaurant. I want to feel part of this thing. And he sees that as a trend that moves back to where our parents had a line of credit at the grocery store and could go in and tell Cliff, just put it on my bill, that we're moving back to that sort of a customer service. And I love that thought.
Yeah, I do as well. So you're predicting that as a trend in 20?
I'm predicting that we're going to see it more and more. I mean, it's not a major gutsy prediction to say things like Ruby Tuesdays are going out of business. Because I mean, we're
thinking Red Lobster when you said that.
Red Lobster. I mean, it's the same thing. These things that are nameless, faceless, maybe their food is fine, but really, I don't feel like I'm a part of moving something forward. I don't feel like they care about me as a person. May or may not even be true. It's just this stigma that is attached to these chain restaurants and this chain experience
Hmm.
that I think is really good for small business.
I think it's really interesting, John, because I think about things like Amazon
Mm-hmm.
that, I feel like I can't live without now. It's so easy and the experience is so smooth and so simple. But all I'm buying is a good.
It is.
And then I think about restaurants I go to, or the my doctor, or any of these other services, where for me personally, it's all about the experience
Yes.
now. And maybe we're starting to shake that out in our own minds. It sounds like I hadn't thought about it, but
I think so. And this is a different podcast conversation, but Darren, we used to say you need to productize your services. I think I'm starting to rethink that again.
hmm.
I think that there is a good separation between what is a product and what is a service. If it's a product, I can get it from Jeff Bezos and I can have it here tomorrow at 2:00. I don't care about customer service.
Well,
I
you do
really
care
don't.
about it as long as it's pretty. I mean, as long as it gets there at 2 o'clock tomorrow and the back package
I
isn't
guess
damaged.
that's true. Customer service, I care about.
Yeah.
Personalization,
Yeah. There you
personalizing my
go.
customer service. I don't need to know who packed my box as long as it
Right.
gets home. But when I go to the restaurant, I don't want to think of it as a product. That entree is not a product. It is a service. And with a service comes a human being who
Mm.
gives me a more boutique feeling about my experience. And I think this is good news for small business. It's good news for accounting firms, but it means we have to utilize all of the technology. We have to dive into this stuff in order to give us the capacity to give people the service that they want and are demanding now.
So, talk to me more about your thoughts on quantum computing and how that's going to have an impact.
Oh man, I don't have to talk very long to sound like an absolute idiot when it comes to quantum computing because I don't. What I know is quantum computing means computer go really fast. That's basically what I know about quantum computing. But what I'm hearing on things like Hard Fork, listening to Simon Sinek a lot right now, and listening to him bring on people that are developing the infrastructure around AI. And really, we are quickly getting to the limits of our ability to process the data that we have and are using. So, quantum computing allows a totally different process and a totally different set of hardware capabilities to provide us with what is a unimaginable scaling of our ability to process the data and the communication around us.
So, do
With
you
that,
see
oh yeah, go ahead.
something significant in 25 then, or
I do.
just
I think what you're going to start to see is experiments at governmental levels. You're going to start to hear about this. It's been happening for a while already. We already have major investments. The U.S. is investing in quantum computing. Europe's investing in quantum computing, and you haven't heard much about it. I think you're going to start hearing about some of the things that we can do. For instance, my daughter's in biology, wants to go into medicine. She's looking into biotech. I think that's where she's going to end up. In her estimation, this is the way cancer will be cured in
hmm,
our lifetime. Not because there are a bunch of people raising money in labs. That will be the infrastructure that we feed into a quantum computing that will allow us to do thousands of years of work in a short amount of time
yeah.
and come to the right genetic predispositions for cancer survivors. And I think this is the kind of thing that we're going to hear more and more about, so that we will start to see the value of it before it becomes part of the public sector. And I think we're still years away from being able to go and Apple giving us the first, quantum M35 chip.
Hmm. Last one, John, on the list coming from you.
Yeah.
Work and hiring. How's it going to change in 2025? What's going to happen?
Well, I stole my own thunder a little bit of that with AI agents, but I do think that AI is going to infiltrate our workforce. And Darren, I have a addiction to optimism. I mean, I know that there are some jobs it's going to take, and I understand the downside of that. But I also believe it's going to free up a quality of work and a quality of life, at least an opportunity for both of those things that we've never seen before. And I think when I think about that topic, without making it a bigger conversation, I think this is incumbent upon leaders that will leverage these things and see them as opportunities to create better jobs and better work-life balance.
You're talking about
And
the things that we've just talked about.
all of these things, everything we've just talked about, you can either think about as a way to create more money for your bottom line, which it will do, as a byproduct, though, of creating a better place to work and more capacity in your workers.
So your take is all the the Apple AIs, the agents, the strategic integration of AI, all the stuff we've talked about that we see really starting to take shape in 2025, having that impact on work and hiring, and those are not separate things.
I do, but you know what the funniest thing to me about it is, the thing that all of the optimism in my head hinges on has nothing to do with technology. It's just good old-fashioned human to human leadership. An actual forward-thinking leader who sees all of this stuff not as a scary robots are going to take over the world, and also not as just an opportunity to add to their bottom line and leverage, but to leverage the sustainability of their business model and of their work environment. And I think that's the most exciting thing to me. This has the potential of making our lives and our work much more meaningful.
Well, that's pretty optimistic for 2025. Feeling good, John.
I'm always feeling good. I love to think about this stuff, but to me, Darren, it is always driven by how our posture towards it. Obviously, you can take the list of everything we've talked about and turn it towards something that will end the world. You can always end in a nuclear explosion with every one of those bullet points. But it's incumbent upon humans to see it and see the best in it and utilize it to create capacity and better life.
I feel like 2024 was a year of preparation.
Yeah.
As I think about it, and 2025 may be the year where we see some traction.
Action. Yeah.
And I think the most important thing is that our listeners stay plugged in, because this is
pay attention.
It's all happening, and invest. And what I mean by investing is get the right tools and get engaged. I mean, don't be passive on this.
Absolutely. That was a fun conversation. We could have taken that a lot of different directions. Hope you heard something today that gets you excited about what's next in 25 and puts the ball in your court in terms of a leader and moving things forward in your firm.
John, that was good. Next year we'll talk about this and see what happened.
Yeah, we'll see how dumb we were.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening today. We'll see you next time on the Modern Firm Podcast.